VR Group is a state-owned railway company in Finland, formerly known as Suomen Valtion Rautatiet until 1922 and Valtionrautatiet Statsjärnvägarna until 1995. Its most important function is the operation of freight and passenger rail services. Since 2010, the maintenance and the construction of the railway network are the responsibility of the Finnish Transport Agency. The operation and network were originally carried out by the parent company Valtionrautatiet until 1995, when it was split into VR Group and the rail administration entity Rautahallinto. History. Rail transport started in Finland in 1862, and multiple main lines were built at the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century in addition to smaller private railways. The Valtionrautatiet operated mainly on the bigger and longer main lines. During the 20th century, most private railway companies were shut down and Valtionrautatiet assumed a monopoly in rail transport. In 1995, the company was privatized into VR Group. Company organization. Companies in the group provide road freight and bus services, catering and real estate management, and provide data, technological, and telecommunications services for the transport and logistics sectors. The group owns a bus company, Liiken, and a road freight haulage company, VR Transpoint. Altogether, the group of companies includes 21 companies employing a total of about 14,400 people. Services. Because in most parts of Finland the density of population is low, Finland is not optimally suited for railways. Commuter services are nowadays rare outside the Helsinki area, but express trains interconnect most cities. As in France, the majority of passenger services are connections to the capital, Helsinki. VR provides car transport services. 7 stations allow loading and unloading of cars on trains. Helsinki, Turku and Tampere in the south, Oulu further north, and Rovaniemi, Kemijärvi and Kolari in Lapland. Car transport trains stop at other stations along the way for normal passenger transport. Finland is the only Nordic country to offer car transport on trains. However, car transport on trains is available on many European countries outside the Nordic countries. Commuter traffic. VR runs commuter traffic in the Helsinki area. International services. There is an international passenger rail service from Finland to Russia. As of June 2011, there are 4 Allegro passenger trains per day to St. Petersburg and 1 overnight train to Moscow via St. Petersburg called the Tolstoy. On the 29th of May 2011, Allegro traffic increased from 2 to 4 trains per day in each direction. The tracks on the Helsinki-St. Petersburg line were upgraded to enable a higher running speed before the Allegro started its service. Freight. Domestic and international freight services are provided by VR Transpoint, part of VR Group. In 2009, both domestic and international freight traffic declined, which worsened VR Group's financial position. International freight traffic is concentrated to the 4 railways across the Russian border, but there is also a connection to the Swedish rail network in Tornio and rail ferry connections from Turku to Stockholm, Sweden, and to Travemünde, Germany. Rolling stock locomotives. VR operated steam locomotives until 1975. The regular use of steam traction for scheduled passenger services ended in 1970, but occasional use continued until 1975. As of 2011, the company operates 2 classes of electric locomotives and 3 classes of diesel locomotives. The use of diesel locomotive-hauled passenger trains has declined due to electrification of all main lines and the introduction of rail buses on secondary routes. In October 2010, VR announced plans to renew its locomotive fleet by ordering around 200 new locomotives, which are expected to enter service in 2015 to 25. On the 20th of December 2013, VR announced plans to purchase 80 new electric locomotives, with 97 options. This upcoming Senior 3 will be based on the Siemens Vectron and will replace the aging Senior 1S. The locomotives will be fitted with helper diesel engines that can be used for shunting in partly unelectrified rail yards. Deliveries will occur between 2017 and 2026. Locomotive classification system. At the beginning of traffic, locomotives were distinguished by the names, and by 1865 also by the numbers. In 1887, the locomotives were given their original classification system. It was based on the wheel arrangement of the locomotives. Each wheel arrangement was assigned a letter of the alphabet, which was followed by a serial number. The assignment of letters to different wheel arrangements was made when the first locomotive using it was brought into service. The letter A signified a 440 wheelbase in the white notation. B signified AO 420 locomotive, CAO 60 locomotive, and so on. On the 8th of October 1942, the notation system was changed to 2 letters and a serial number. The first letter in the designation now signified the types of trains the locomotive was generally planned to haul: H for passenger trains, P for local trains, T for freight trains, S for mixed freight passenger trains, and V for shunters. The second small letter indicated the weight of the locomotive: R equals heavy, V equals midweight, K equals light, M equals mechanical transmission, S equals electrical transmission. When diesel locomotives were taken into service in the 1950s, they were additionally differentiated by the steam locomotive classes by beginning the numbering from 11 instead of the next free number in running order. As a result, the last steam-powered heavy passenger locomotive class was designated DR3, and its first diesel-powered counterpart R11. The current VR locomotive classification system was taken into use on the 1st of January 1976. The first letter was now used to differentiate between locomotive types: S for electric, D for diesel, and T for maintenance equipment. The serial numbers of diesel locomotive classes were not changed, the R11 class becoming Dr. 11. In addition to this, the borderline between midweight and heavy locomotives was changed to 15.1 tons, and the second letter in multiple units is always M. Carriages. The wide Finnish loading gauge allows the passenger coaches to be considerably wider than most European passenger coaches. The island seats are wider than in other European trains in the standard 2+2 configuration, and in commuter traffic 3+2 seat configuration is used to allow more seats for the same train length. The last wooden-bodied carriages were withdrawn by the mid-1980s. Prior to the 1970s, these had been the mainstay of VR's passenger rolling stock. VR has 4 types of locomotive-hauled passenger coaches: blue carriages, popularly known as such due to the blue and light grey liveries. Once the mainstay of VR's network, they have now been replaced on most long-distance services starting from Helsinki. They are still used on slower routes, for example between Turku and Tampere, and some regional train services. Top speed is 140–160 km per hour. Red carriages, similar to the blue coaches but designed for commuter traffic, with a red and light grey livery, different seat layout and repositioned entrance doors. They are mainly used for locomotive-hauled commuter services to and from Helsinki during rush hours, but also on special occasions in place of the blue carriages in long-distance services. Top speed is 160 km per hour after modernization. Single-deck intercity carriages, used on many routes. Top speed is 160 km per hour. Double-deck intercity 2 carriages, extensively used on the Helsinki-Kauhavana, Helsinki-Tampere and Helsinki-Turku routes. Most long-distance trains consist of both intercity and intercity 2 coaches. Built in Finland by Transtech Oy, these are VR's most modern carriages. Their top speed is 200 km per hour. In addition to these, VR has ordered 12 plus 13 Class Edo control cars from Transtech, 8 of which have been in regular passenger traffic since the 29th of October 2013. The cars are used in IC2 connections with the Senior 2 and the upcoming Senior 3 locomotives pushing the train. First-class carriages used to be distinguished by a yellow stripe above the windows. On the blue carriages, restaurant cars are marked by a red stripe above the windows. Cars equipped with diesel generators, which are used to provide electricity to intercity as sleeper wagons on non-electrified tracks, can be distinguished by a blue stripe above the windows. Sleeping cars. VR operates sleeper services between Helsinki and Turku and Lapland, which also include car-carrying wagons. Double-deck sleeping carriages were introduced on the Helsinki-Rovaniemi service in the 2000s. These wagons are painted in a red and white livery similar to the intercity coaches. Other overnight services are operated by older, blue, sleeper carriages. Electrification extends from Oulu northwards to Rovaniemi, and as of 2013 is being extended north to Kemijärvi. In 2006, direct sleeper services were discontinued beyond Rovaniemi because the new double-deck sleeping carriages were unable to operate with diesel haulage. The sleeper service to Kemijärvi was restarted in March 2008 by adding to the train in Rovaniemi a new diesel generator car supplying 1,500 volts electricity for the sleeper cars between Rovaniemi and Kemijärvi. This setup will continue in use until the electrification extension to Kemijärvi is completed at the end of 2013. Sleeper services between Turku and Joensuu and Helsinki and Kajaani were withdrawn in 2006, but with the new direct line between Lahti and Kerava, the daytime services were made quicker. On the 12th of January 2009, VR announced they had requested tenders for the purchase of 20 new sleeping cars, valued at 60 to 70 million euros. The two bidders interested were Alstom, which manufactures the Pendolino and some commuter trains for VR, and Finnish Transport, which manufactured VR's new sleeping cars. The decision led to the resignation of the president and CEO of VR Group, Henri Kuitunen, and the group's chairman of the board, Antti Lagros. Helsingin Sanomat reported they had wanted to defer the replacement of older sleeping car rolling stock until 2012 at the earliest. However, the decision went ahead because VR is a state-owned business and there was pressure to seek orders from Finnish Transport, which is currently struggling due to market downturns, in order to secure jobs. Freight wagons. The Finnish loading gauge allows the operation of freight vehicles considerably larger than most other railways in the European Union. Road trailers can be easily accommodated on ordinary flat wagons. Much of the freight on the VR network is carried from Russia in Russian wagons, including large-capacity 8-axle oil tank wagons. VR also has a one-third ownership of Searail, a specialist operator of freight wagons designed for through running to Sweden and elsewhere in Western Europe. Multiple units. The EDM 3 class Pendolino is the VR's flagship, mainly connecting larger cities to the capital. Other EMUs in use are the EDM 1, EDM 2 and EDM 4 in Helsinki area commuter services. In addition, VR operates Parkaupunkiseudun Junikalasto-owned ed M5 Class Emus in Helsinki Local Traffic and ed M6 Allegro under a joint venture of VR and the Russian Railways. Karelian trains between Helsinki and St. Petersburg. VR currently operates one class of diesel-powered multiple units, the Czech-built single-carriage DM12, which is used mainly on secondary lines. Multiple Unit Classification System. The Multiple Unit Classification System follows a similar logic as the Locomotive Classification System. The first letter signifies the power source and would gas have been used, followed by the letter M signifying a multiple unit, followed by a serial number. Livery. VR has used several liveries in the past. When intercity traffic started during the 1980s, VR's color scheme was changed into red and white. In 2009, VR changed its corporate color to green and is currently repainting most of its rolling stock. Greenhouse gas emissions. As of June 2009, detailed statistics for VR's greenhouse gas emissions were provided by LIPASTO. On average, in 2007, carbon dioxide equivalent emissions per passenger kilometer were electric long distance 15 grams, electric long distance 25 grams. Electric local traffic 22 grams, diesel-powered 77 grams.